The dance continues for Arkansas basketball team and coach John Calipari. You saw it right here on Channel 5 this afternoon. 10-seed Arkansas taking down number 2 seed St. John's 75-66 to advance to the Sweet 16 for the 4th time in 5 years. Arkansas pulling off the upset, and now they're headed to San Francisco, where they'll take on Texas Tech next Thursday. 5 News sports reporter Robin Hearn will join us later with a full recap and what comes next for the Hogs. And after that big win, giving the Hogs a Sweet 16 ticket, Hog fans have been celebrating all day. 5 News sports reporter Parker Ables was out on Dixon today watching the game with those fans and tells us how excited they were to be moving on.
Hundreds of Hogs fans gathered on Dixon Street to watch the Hogs take on St. John. And as you can imagine, it was a party.
It's all about the Razorbacks. It's going to always be about the Razorbacks. Couldn't ask for a better atmosphere. We had everybody in the building ready to go.
Some fans were a little tense during the game.
We were up by 6. I was a little bit worried because I know St. John's is the second half team.
St. John's was a spooky team to begin with. Number 2 defense in the nation. Very stressed.
However, others knew it was never in doubt.
I wasn't stressed at all because I'm going to tell you something. Always, we're going to pull it off every time. When the pressure on us, we got it. We're going to do our thing.
For this couple who got engaged right before the game, it was a great present. But they have another ring in mind.
It's the best present, the best.
There was one ring given out this week, but we want another one in 2 weeks. There's work to be done in San Antonio, and we're not resting until we get it done.
And these fans love how the Hogs use that underdog mentality to give them a Sweet 16 berth.
See, a lot of people counted us out. But look at us, dancing. Sweet 16, turn me up.
They put us in a coffin, but they forgot to put the nails in.
And some think they got more wins to go.
And we're going to keep moving. We're not done with the Sweet 16 this year. We're going to keep moving.
You can eat calamari, and you can have a resort in Kalahari. And your coach can be John Calipari. Hogs in 5.
In Fayetteville, covering news where you live, Parker Ables, 5 News.
Today, the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History hosted Stories from the Atolls. It's all in an effort to preserve Marshallese culture. We spoke with the group on how they keep the history of their ancestors alive.
Statistics and data have proved that we are the highest population of Marshallese concentrated outside of the Marshall Islands.
Annie Mon, which is a men's Marshallese group, is trying to preserve the culture of their people.
I, for myself, like 3 generations down the road from my own children, I would like to have all these pieces of handicrafts that they can come and are tangible, they can see it physically.
At an event on Saturday, they aim to foster open conversations about life experiences in the Marshall Islands and the U.S. They asked people to bring photos, artifacts, as well as tell stories and memories.
One of my great uncles, and he was the first oil painter, and I have that in my possession. The coconut candy that we see right here, that's actually my great grandma found the recipe for it, and it was our survival food during the war.
Stephanie Takamaru says these physical objects can tell quite a story.
How all these artifacts are not art to us. They're actually just our life, like they are a livelihood. Without the basket, we can't put food in. Without the coconut candy, we can't eat any healthy food. Now that we are in the States, we now see them as artwork, because those, we can preserve them.
Keeping the culture alive from thousands of miles away.
We may not be in the islands living our lived experiences, but we still honor our traditions and cultures here in the States.
The museum is developing a field trip and loan box for students to learn more about the Marshallese culture. The Trump administration making a major move, revoking the legal status of over 500,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela who were in the U.S. under parole status. Christian Benavides has the details.
Late Friday, the Trump administration announced it was revoking the legal status of more than 500,000 immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela who came to the U.S. legally under a parole status. The Biden-era program, known as CHNV, allowed the immigrants to live in the U.S. through sponsorships by U.S. citizens and permanent residents.
In the next 30 days, their work permits and deportation protections will be lapsed and terminated by the Department of Homeland Security, which is warning that if these people do not voluntarily depart the country, John, they will be found, arrested, and deported from the country.
It comes as Friday, federal judge James Boasberg rebuked the Trump administration for ignoring his order to turn planes around mid-flight, carrying Venezuelan migrants to a high-security detention facility in El Salvador. Boasberg asked the Justice Department attorney, "Did you not understand?" and accused the administration of disrespecting the court, ignoring orders, and missing his deadlines. The president has firmly stood by his decision and blasted the judge.
They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. You know, he didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen.
The administration claims all the men who were deported are gang members, despite some having no criminal history and given no due process. The deportees are being held in one of the most notorious prisons in the world. Cristian Benavides, CBS News.
Christians around the world are awaiting Pope Francis's scheduled release from a Rome hospital on Sunday. He was there for more than 5 weeks, battling a life-threatening bout of double pneumonia. CBS News correspondent Ali Bauman reports.
Pope Francis's doctors say he will be discharged from the hospital on Sunday. He spent nearly 40 days fighting double pneumonia. He was admitted on February 14th with bronchitis that grew worse. His doctors say Pope Francis will need at least 2 months of rest and rehabilitation after he returns to the Vatican. During his life-threatening illness, the 88-year-old Pope suffered several respiratory crises that put him in critical condition.
The Holy Father, at the time of his admission to Gemelli Hospital, presented an acute respiratory failure.
The Vatican press office says the Pope's situation stabilized over the past 2 weeks. He is no longer using a ventilation mask at night and is relying less on supplemental oxygen during the day.
The Holy Father was never intubated, and he always remained alert and oriented.
But doctors say the Pope will need continued speech therapy after prolonged use of high-flow oxygen. The Vatican announced Pope Francis would appear on Sunday morning to bless the faithful from his 10th floor suite at the hospital, his first live appearance since he was admitted last month. Ali Bauman, CBS News, New York.
One of the world's greatest heavyweight fighters has died. George Foreman passed away at the age of 76. CBS News correspondent Wendy Gillette has more on his life.
George Foreman launched his heavyweight boxing career and life in the limelight as an Olympian, winning gold in Mexico City in 1968. The native Texan then continued building his legacy, winning fight after fight and making history with his knockout victory over Joe Frazier in 1973.
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
But then came his downfall, the famed Rumble in the Jungle fight in 1974, an unexpected 8th-round knockout loss to Muhammad Ali, one of the most watched TV events of that time period.
I think Muhammad Ali and I did something for the world because people in Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, all over Africa, Europe, they all stood up at weird hours of the morning and night to see that fight.
It was prefaced by plenty of pre-fight trash talk.
Called me the Frankenstein monster, only because I was.
The loss was one of the turning points of Foreman's life.
It was like I was mugged in the jungle. I went there with 2 title belts. I came home with none.
He could laugh about the defeat years later, after he and Ali became the best of friends.
Oh, he was the greatest man I ever met. To say he was the greatest boxer is a put down. He was bigger than boxing. He was bigger than anything.
Foreman wasn't done in the ring after leaving the sport in 1977, staging a comeback a decade later, following what he called a religious awakening. He won another heavyweight title, beating Michael Moorer in 1994 at the age of 45. Then came his second career as an entrepreneur, launching the George Foreman Grill, which sold more than 100 million units around the world.
George Foreman, and look out!
He was beloved for his spirit and sense of humor. His family announcing his death on social media with an emotional tribute, saying he lived his life marked by unwavering faith, humility, and purpose. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
People in Northwest Arkansas celebrating the pups today. Today was the Bark in the Park with the Purina Incredible Dog Challenge team. People got to spend time with the team of dogs and watch as they took on an agility course. It happened out at the Momentary Green in Bentonville. People were also able to meet with people from the Precinct Home Candy Creek Pet Sanctuary to learn more about dog adoptions from best friends. And for decades, the most reliable place to find a meal in the middle of the night was often the local diner. But nowadays, fewer restaurants are staying open all night. Michael George shows us why the 24-hour diner is a danger of becoming a thing of the past.
At Manhattan's Diner 24, owner Stratus Morfogen says the name says it all.
You never close. Never close. Who are the customers who are coming in at midnight, at 2 a.m., at 4 a.m.?
It's interesting. The police station is down the block. Nightclubbers. We have about 30 bars here within 7 blocks. Hospitals.
But lately, even in the city that never sleeps, fewer restaurants are staying open overnight.
No place is open past 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yelp says the number of 24-hour diners dropped 18% since the pandemic, when many restaurants shifted to normal business hours and never looked back. Operating 24/7 is expensive, and now people craving late-night food can just order from an app and get it delivered.
It's sad to see that it started to die out, but again, in all fairness, it was time for change.
Morfogen says his restaurant found new life by updating diner classics. They went viral on TikTok and brought in new customers.
This is my smash burger with 2 fried eggs, my foot-long hot dog.
He says the restaurant's busiest hours are midnight to 5 a.m., proving it may not yet be time for the 24-hour diner to shut its doors. Michael George, CBS News, New York.